Hey, welcome to the Fine Print, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Caleb Teskey, and I've got another great guest for you tonight. We've been away for a little bit, and I'm super excited to fire the show back up here. I do want to thank a couple of my previous guests, as we always do. My man D French here in Vermont just put out a great album, All Saints Day. My guest tonight would really like this story here, Flying High. Marty Rollins, the great cannabis caper. They were flying weed in from Colombia back in the 80s and 70s. Talvin White out in Illinois, Canna Farm Dispensary. And we had the Lieutenant Governor on the show, John Rogers, who's been super active in writing the legislation for legalization here in Vermont. And then he just got elected Lieutenant Governor. So that was super cool. I don't really have anything coming up. Usually I announce the stuff coming up. I have some social equity guests from Massachusetts that I'm going to interview that I'm super excited about, but I haven't booked any of those yet. My guest tonight, though, guys, is a guy that I met in Nican 3 years ago. I remember handing him my card, and I told him I was looking to interview Vermont businesses, and he said, well, I'm Canadian, so we'll probably never talk again. And then I had him on the show, and we had a great interview. And I kind of lost track of the genetics when we were talking because he had so many great stories about smuggling and the Canadian market and this and that. But today I've got the owner of Omuerta Genetix back again. Please welcome to the show, Luke Williams.
How you doing, guys? Thank you very much, Caleb, for having me on. I appreciate it, buddy.
Before we do anything serious, and I forgot to tell you, I have like a little 10-second video I'm going to play, but will you give us a 5-minute life story after this?
Life story in 5 minutes. I grew up middle class. I got into weed from two older brothers who introduced me at a very young age. Started growing at about 18. Started seriously growing in my 20s. And went through a divorce, went through a separation, moved out on my own. And that's when I just hit the ground running. We started doing a lot of pioneering work in Canada when it was illegal, doing organizing the 420 smokeouts at City Hall, building dab lounges, bars you could go and you could smoke in like a private club, operating my own dispensary. Quite a few things to try and push the envelope and move legalization forward. When it legalized in Canada, it got very nasty for a little bit. I retreated back to my own little heaven and got back into seeds. I had always been breeding, but I had kind of backed off Omuerta. I was testing the waters, but I wasn't too serious with it. I was trying to run a dispensary. When it became legal here, the dispensary was no good. We actually got raided in Project Green Suite. I spent 2 years going to court, just being out of the industry, out of the market. Retreated back to my own place. Got back into breeding. Got back into breeding heavily. Started pushing the brand a little bit more, and here we are today, man. 5 minutes, life story, 3.5.
That was pretty good. Yeah, I think it was 2.5 or 3.
I'm my own worst critic, and
yeah, you are.
I don't find my life very interesting, but I'm the one who's lived it. So
let the rest of the people make that decision.
True. It's hard to pull stuff out of me. I'll say this right off the hop before we get started. Caleb, you know this as we spoke about this. I have brutal, debilitating anxiety. Like, I'm having trouble looking at myself on the screen here. all I can see is the gap between my teeth. I had a tooth pulled last year, and I haven't had the money to replace it, and that's all I can see. So, I've got the shakes. I'm nervous. I should be a lot further ahead in this field than I am, but I really don't put myself out there. If you ask me, I'm just a guy who plays in the dirt, and I'm just thankful and grateful that people like what I'm doing and want to support what I'm doing.
We got a couple people watching. If you guys have any questions for Luke, please chime in. I have some questions, and the first question I want to ask you, we're going to dive right in here, Luke.
Sure.
Why genetics?
Why genetics?
Why genetics? Good question. I never chose this. I never set out to be a cannabis breeder. I never set out to work with cannabis. I was a guy that was into reptiles. As you can see behind me, I'm still into snakes. I've been able to scale up in my life now as working in a 40-hour a week job. It lets me afford better things than when I was a teenager. So I specialize in Australian tree snakes now, in carpet pythons. And I was always into reptiles. In my 20s, I was smoking, but I was doing the import-export business. I was owning everything under the sun, turtles and lizards and snakes. And I got into I got into snakes, and specifically large constrictors, Burmese pythons, boa constrictors, reticulated pythons. And I started breeding boa constrictors, Burmese pythons, and ball pythons, and it just snowballed. Slowly, I got married. The snakes went down in size and collection to where I only had a few, and I moved to follow a welding job, actually. And I didn't know anybody where I was going to be living, and I just didn't see the value of driving down the highway for an hour and a half every week to pay top dollar for an OZ to burn it to replace it. So I got some lights, old warehouse HPS, at the time it was a light, it grew. I had some grows under my belt, but they, and some of them were successful, but at the time it was pre-2000s. There was no internet rocking. It was very early days in the internet. Nobody was going on and speaking about their grows. There was a few forums that were going, the Overgrow, but that was kind of before my time. And to be honest, had I known about them at that time, I would be one of those old school guys that wouldn't be posting my pictures and stuff. I'd be lurking, but I wouldn't have posted. So yeah, I bought seeds from Mark Emery from the Cannabis Culture magazine. It was a Canadian publication, quite like High Times here in Canada. And what he did was he would post a catalog in every issue of seeds and what you could get. And it was a lot of imports from the Netherlands and from Amsterdam, and pretty much all the Dutch strains he had. He had a few Canadian strains, all old stuff like Early Girl and Silver Pearl and a lot of Neville's Haze and stuff like that. My first purchase was Skunk Number 1 and something called Blue Moonshine.
Yo, hold up. Since you mentioned that, Luke.
Sure.
Here's Talvin White. He says, have you come across an actual roadkill Skunk Number 1 genetics recently, clone or seed? Thanks for watching, Talvin, too.
No. It's probably out there somewhere. Not in any circles that I've encountered. And I mean, we'll get into that, I'm sure, later on in the show about losing cannabis strains and the way the markets have shifted to numbers. That all kind of coincides with losing cannabis. You know, the story out there is that when Camp started, campaign against marijuana or whatever, they started breeding away from those skunk terpenes and from those esters and those oils to camouflage their grows. They went towards fruit. I don't know how true that is. Like everything, things come in a fad. Things are hot for a bit, then they start going cold and other things come in. You know, it's really hard to hold strains for 10, 20 years. You know, I know guys that hold strains for 5 years and it impresses me. Because a lot of things can happen in 5 years. Your plant can pick up pathogens and virus loads in 5 years. The seasons change where I am. You know, we always have a real hot summer. Then we have a really cold winter up here in Canada. And, you know, the humidity changes, the air changes. It's really hard to, you know, you've got a mite season if you're running air conditioners or intakes from outside, exhaust, even just walking into your house. Animals, I've got a dog, they carry it in. And it's a lot combines up in a year. And these guys are running they're holding on to a clone or a clone of a clone of a clone for 5-10 years. It's incredible. So it doesn't surprise me that strains get lost. In answer to the question directly, no, I haven't seen a roadkill skunk. I've seen a lot of guys that claim they have roadkill skunk, and they're not. You know, a lot of guys in the UK claim they have roadkill skunk, and it's like, you don't even have skunk over there. You don't even have the animal skunk over there. So I don't, you know, I've never been to the UK, so I'm kind of talking out my ass on this. But from what I hear, the UK skunks are more cheeses. The skunk slang that they talk about is more of a cheese plant, an Exodus cheese, where we talk skunk is a skunk killed on the highway on the summertime. Everybody knows that smell. It's a burning rubber, lingering, sticking to everything, you know. It's road tar, it's skunk spray, it's rubber, you know. And that's our version of roadkill skunk. And I haven't seen it. I've seen close to it. You know, Thousand Oaks gets close to it. I've seen some OGs that get close to it. But no, I haven't seen anything that I can say that's roadkill.
Let me throw another comment. On below. Luke, would you have any books in mind that you would suggest for a guy to take his grow to the next level? Any book ever stick out to you?
Yeah, actually, I keep one book. I don't know if it'll bring your grow to the next level, but I keep one book on hand all the time, and it's Marijuana Botany. And this is a great book for starting you off into breeding specifically. You won't be able to see it with the glare, but it's got a lot of classifications, how to read a Punnett square. It's a very old book. This was put out as a thesis by Robert Connell Clark, I believe in the late 70s. But there's a lot of really good information for landrace strains, for root strains, to identify that's a Hindu Kush plant. Oh, that's an Asian sativa plant. You know, there's some really good information in this. I also really like the Greg Green Cannabis Bible series. I don't know what version he's up to right now, but Greg Green has some very in-depth books. They're quite like the old marijuana horticulture and cannabis indoors that Ed Rosenthal used to do and Jorge Cervantes used to put out. The Greg Green books have all that information about building, maintaining a grow, setting up a grow, cloning, getting into breeding. I probably up now in the versions that they just released, they probably have extracting, they probably have hash making, they probably have a lot of things. So, and big ups to Tree Trunk in the latest version of the Cannabis Bible, he has some Omuerta pictures of plants that have made the Cannabis Bible.
Sick.
So I believe he's in there with blueberry glue. He gave me the pages, but offhand I can't tell you. So pick up the latest version of Greg Green's Cannabis Bible and check it out.
And one more here from Talvin. I have seeds from 96 through 2004, but it didn't label any. I know Skunk Genetics are there somewhere. Just have too many random seeds. May never find it. Every time I buy a supposed skunk, it is cheese or sour diesel.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's become a marketing gimmick. A lot of guys claim they have it. You know, it takes you a couple months to put it into veg. It takes you a couple months to flower it out. You know, 6-7 months down the road, you realize you don't have a skunk. Like I said, I buy a lot of breeder seeds. Okay. I go through a lot of seeds a year. I'm always popping seeds. I pop a large number of seeds. The closest that I've come to a skunk, and I'm biased, it's Thousand Oaks. And that's why it's so heavy in my arsenal. And that's why it's crossed so heavy in all my crosses. A lot of them have oak tree or Thousand Oaks, because the terpene is abusive. It's obnoxious. It's a rubber. It's a sweet, poisony purple kush. It's not grape. It's just dank. It's wet dog. It's repugnant. My wife, when I used to cut down that strain, she used to get so mad because she'd go to work and her jacket and her purse would just reek like gassy, rubbery. It's not right gas. It's not right rubber. It's not quite skunk, but it's as close as I've smelled in years to it. And I love that strain, so I just keep it around. But yeah, I'm biased. It seems we've gone towards, right now it's the candy and the candy gas is in, but we bred fruits for a while. In the 2000 orange strains were huge, or anything orange, critical mass, and stuff like that had that citrus punch to it. Those were really big. And then the purples took over. People liked the look of the purples and the terpenes in the purples, and those took over. Then we started getting away from those, and now we're into the super candies, really. So we lose things along the way if you're not keeping things in seed form, and you don't have a safe place where you can keep a clone in stasis for years and years without infecting it, without losing it, which is very hard to do. Things come in waves, things come in fads. So I think we've lost the skunk in fads. It's probably out there in seed form somewhere. If we can pop the seeds, if somebody can pop the seeds, if they're still fertile, if they've been stored properly, maybe somebody can combine and breed the next skunk and get a version 2.0 of it. That is also possible. Jury's still out.
I'm going to slap this up, Luke. I'm here with Luke Williams, Omuerta Genetix. I want to dig into the list of kind of the things you wanted to talk about here.
Okay.
And the first thing is about probiotic growing and breeding. I'm not sure what that means exactly. Maybe you can tell us.
Well, probiotic gardening, growing, it's a method, just like KNF, just like hydroponics, just like, living soil. It's a method of gardening, and probiotic seems to be one step above or one tier above living soil. Okay. It is living soil. You are building soil. You are building a little ecosystem that, pretty much thrives on its own, is a complete loop. in itself. And really the plant just grows. I don't grow a plant. I tell people as much as it's the building of the soil and what the plant gets. I like to grow in sub-irrigated planters. Okay, what they are is it's a deep bed. It's basically a big window box, and it's got a raised up screen in the bottom and free flowing water and air in the bottom. Okay, you've got a tube that you water that flows down to the bottom, and dirt on top of a screen with one column of dirt that goes into the water and acts as a wicking system and actually sucks up water into the bed. So you're no longer watering from the top. The plant is using what it needs from the water. You're not feeding it. I don't use any nutrients. I don't use pH down, pH up. There's no bottles here. If it comes in a bottle, unless it's a chlorine solution, I don't want it. You build your soil. Okay.
Can I stop you for a second?
You can jump in whenever you want, buddy.
Why not use the stuff in the bottle? What's your beef there?
There's a lot of, depending on what you get. Okay. There's a lot of good in a bottle, in some bottles, and what am I trying to say here? There's a lot of bottles that are on the market that are chelated nutrients, and they try to market themselves as OMRI rated or super synthetic or semi-synthetic or organic. It's a lot of crap. Okay. I was a chemical farmer. When I grew up, I was Bigfoot. Then I was a Dutch Blooms guy. Then I was a DNF guy. Then I was an advanced formula guy. Then I got slapped in the face by a buddy. And he brought me in the grow store as I was there to spend my, $250, $300 on various bottles of stuff. And he picked up Advanced Formulas Bud Candy. It's got a big, colorful picture of a kid eating an ice cream cone or a cotton candy or something. And it says Bud Candy. It's basically sugar load, carbo load for your plants in flour to beef up. Okay. And he showed me the side of it where it says contents. And it said 0.005% carbohydrates. And when we put it back on the shelf, when we got back in the car, I bought the rest of my stuff. He says, don't buy this. And took me down the street to a grocery store and ended up spending maybe $1.50 and buying a carton of blackstrap molasses, all organics. It's 100% carbohydrates. So what am I spending $50, $60 for a bottle that's 0.005% carbohydrate load? I'm paying for the sticker. I'm paying for the name and the brand, and that's it. My advanced formula days were over. I met a guy. Once I started breeding, I was still using semi-synthetic. I think I was using, I can see it in my head. I can't think of the name. Organic, Botanicare. I was using Botanicare. It was a semi-synthetic, okay, and thinking that it would taste better. It's always got this smell to it. It's always got this taste to it. It's tinny. It's muted. It's the same. A couple guys I met when I started getting on Facebook and started joining grow groups and stuff, and actually, now was a time that I could hop on and participate in forums and groups. And now I knew what I was doing a little bit. I wasn't scared. I'd been on the news smoking bongs, in dab lounges. So I wasn't scared of being known. And now I could put my face out there and post pictures. And, I was a medical patient for 20 years. So what were they going to do? I was sharing medicine. The only thing that they could do is ban me from the site that I was on, right? But Facebook could delete my pictures. And I met guys that were organic farmers. I picked it up very slow. And I'll caveat this whole speech right now with I am not the best grower. There are guys who buy my seeds that absolutely blow me out of the fucking water. Can I get by without having to go down the street and buy a bag? Absolutely. Or do I have product that other people raise an eyebrow and go, hey, that's nice? Absolutely. That wasn't always like that. But I am not the best grower. I want simplicity. I don't want to be mixing stuff all the time. I want to do it once. I want to spend an afternoon, a couple hours in there, and mix up a big thing of dirt, and then go. The dirt is mixed. I let it sit for about 2 weeks. It cooks, which is it heats up. The bacteria starts moving, and away we go. Fill the sips, put the plants in, away you go. Probiotic gardening is about using ferments, to feed my mycelium mass in the soil and use that to sorry, I'm trying to look at my notes because I'm getting sidetracked here and I can't fucking read them in the dark. Using ferments.
I assume this was kind of like KNF in that same vein.
It's similar. KNF uses a lot of plant ferments. I don't know a lot about KNF. I'm not a KNF guy. I was a simple organic farmer, and I met a guy named Alan Atkinson. He runs the Probiotic Farming Alliance on Facebook. He has a product called Grokashi. I was one of the first 300 guys through the door to this Facebook group that he had. And at the time, it was a beta testing group for this product. And he was raving about it. He was showing root masses that were just blazing white with beautiful cobwebbing of mycelium mats all the way through it. And I bought onto it hook, line, and sinker. And at the time, I had just gone into organic gardening and I wanted to up my game. So I was looking for the magic bullet. I was using earthworm castings. I was using a base of Pro Mix, extra peat, earthworm castings, alfalfa, bone meal, blood meal, kelp meal, anything I could to up my game. And here was this product called Grokashi. Keep in mind, I was still watering with Botanicare at the time, using that as a feed, a semi-synthetic feed, and started using the Grokashi, and it blew me away. And as I started talking to him and started talking to other members on that group, I realized the super synthetic, it's still a chelated nutrient. It's still a salt. That white gunk around your pot at the end of a cycle, that's all salt. That's a big salt ring. That's why people are out there scrubbing their pots you don't want that. You don't want to smoke that. You don't want that in your soil. You don't want to burn that in your flour. And there's salt growers. There's guys that grow on ebb and flow tables and drip systems with hydroponics and cubes. It's great for commercial. I prefer to smoke something where the terpenes are there. And I think living soil, organic, the plant expresses how it wants to express. You're not force feeding something down the plant's face. You're not saying at this time you're getting this, bam. Everything is in the soil. The soil web is complete. If it needs, if it needs whatever, it's there. It can pull stuff out. Sorry, I'm getting nervous and I'm starting to have trouble pulling words out of it.
Don't worry, Luke. I've got plenty of notes here, and we're going to get through this.
When it needs magnesium, when it needs phosphorus, it's all there, and the plant can take it up how it wants to take it up. Whereas if you're feeding 3 times a day on a flood system with an A and B formula, or a dosatron, or some sort of a dose meter, it's giving it what it needs, but it's telling it you're going to take this. And it's almost like an intravenous. And it's just, that's not the vibe that is me. My vibe is getting there with my hands. What I give the plant gives back. I don't want to make it so clinical that sure, maybe the plants are beautiful and they all look great and it's the Instagram age, but it's at the end of the day, cannabis is medicinal. And it's not just about smoking it that it's medicinal. It's about being there and being a steward for it and helping it along its journey and, you know, seeing what it needs and being there to usher that through, you know, giving it the best life cycle that you can. I know how long it's going to be there for. I know how long that life cycle is for. So why do I want to play catch up when I can set the environment for that plant for its entire life cycle and just add water? I don't even pH my water. It's the simplest thing. It's, you know, it's not as simple as a dosatron where you don't have to do anything. But once you've spent that afternoon building your soil, you're good to go. And now every other cycle, when this room comes down, instead of making a bunch of new soil, I will have already made new soil, transfer it in. The old soil goes back into a Rubbermaid, and all I do is re-amend it. And I save money on soil. And the second and the third time I grow in that soil, it's way better than the first.
No shit.
Way better than the first. No shit. Yeah.
Okay.
So like I said, I'm not the best grower. I know about genetics because my background is snakes. I know how things work. I know how alleles line up. I know how genetics go to dominant and how to pull a recessive. There are guys that are way better growers than me, and that's why I like to give them seeds. And that's why I use a lot of other people's pictures when promoting a strain, or my strain pictures on the back of my packs. They're not my pictures. They're everybody who's grown them. And they send them back and they go, look at this. And I'll take the best pictures that I get after about a year of collecting them. And the best one, here you go. You got the back of a pack, pat on your back.
Let me stop you for a second. This is Sean Maloch again. I hope I'm saying your name right. When making an RSO with Omuerta Genetix, what strain would you suggest?
Only one, Gunner's Gift. And that's my CBD strain. It is 5% hemp. So there is it tests at 3-to-1 THC to CBD. It pulls out at about 18.6. And that would be Gunner's Gift. Anybody who's sick, who's not looking for medicine, there's 2 strains I go to depending on what their medical needs is. One of them is Gunner's Gift, and one of them is Seroquel.
All right, Luke. I want to keep it moving here because I got a bunch of bullet points I want to hit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm nervous, so I will ramble.
Oh,
so
I want you to ramble.
Because, you know, I don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over.
I'd never cut you off because I get you on the show because people want to hear you ramble. So tell me about how you choose males and females. That's my next point here. And,
Okay. Let's get into this. A strain is never done at an F1. People make a cross and call it an F1 and release it. It's a baby step into a cultivar. It's not a strain. There's going to be tall ones. What it is it's a meeting of genetics. So you're taking a full profile of P1, parental 1 plant. You're taking a full profile of parental 2, P2 plant. You're putting them together. The first mating is going to have a whole bunch of outcomes. You're going to have some plants that are tall, some plants that are short, some plants that are wide, some plants that are spindly. Some of them are going to creep. Some of them are going to stay dense. Some of them are going to smell this way. Some of them are going to smell that way. At an F1, what a breeder is doing is he's combining genetics. Okay. Then we're looking at where we want to go from that F1. What is your end goal on paper? So when I select a plant, first, it's got to be a strain I like. It's got to be a strain that checks all the boxes for me. I really don't care about what it looks like on Instagram. Pretty plants are pretty plants.
What strains check all the boxes for you, Luke?
I like gas.
Cultivars.
I like gas. I like candy. I like gas, but I like something that I really like hybrids. And the reason for that is I have PTSD. I have very high social anxiety. I'm a medicinal smoker for those reasons. A sativa hybrid gets me social. It gets me talking. In fact, I'm about to light a joint right now because I'm getting nervous. So I'm starting to bottleneck my view on horse blinders. So I'm just gonna treat this like two buddies talking, man. If you don't have anywhere to go, I don't have anywhere to go either. So I like a hybrid that gets my mind going, gets me social, but doesn't make me manic. And where a hybrid will do that with, even a 30% indica, it's kind of like a seatbelt. So if I was to smoke a haze all day, I will go manic. At the end of 3 or 4 days of smoking that, the paranoia is up. I notice I'm spending money like it's going out of style. And that's how I realized, shit, I came home today. The day went like that, talked to everybody, and I've got $400 worth of shit from stores that I never go to. I know I'm manic. Get off that medicine and get back to it. Now, the other way, if I smoke an indica, I get depressed. I get lazy. I don't want to do anything. My days start running together. I sleep all afternoon. Then I wake up. I feel like I'm not productive. I feel like I didn't get anything done. So a hybrid is my alley. A lot of my stuff is hybrids. I mean, a lot of the stuff that's out there is hybrids, unless you're going land race now, or you've selectively line bred something that was 100% sativa or 100% indica. The majority of what we smoke is hybrids out there. So I like a hybrid. I like gas in the hybrid. I'm not really a fruit guy. I like the wet dog. Is that to me or the fruit?
Oh, I love the fruit. How dare you?
How dare you?
I like a wet dog. I like an earthy. I like dank.
Yeah.
I like dank. Now, I do some fruity stuff. I mean, in my personal life, kidding. I do some fruit flavors. Quetzalcoatl is built on grape stomper. It is a very sweet candy grape. 72 Virgins is dead on for mango. Like, I don't even call it citrusy. It is citrusy, but when you think citrusy, you think lemony, limey, orangey. This is dead on for rotten mangoes. This is, you put your head in a bag and close your eyes, and literally it's like you're walking in some third world outdoor market, and the sun beating down on the mangoes and they're all starting to mush. And that's what it smells like. It's just beautiful. So I do fruit stuff. But yeah, checking all the boxes to me, it has to have vigor. It has to grow fast and be vigorous. It has to show me it wants to be there. It wants to live. Okay. I look for structure next. I look for a good chassis that's going to hold weight. I don't want something that goes straight up and has a few little points that come out that aren't doing anything, and it's concentrated on going up. even on topping a linear, I try and stay away from linear. Some strains, that's what they want to do. Like an OG Kush is a very linear strain. That's what it wants to do. Whereas Quetzalcoatl, Fire Creek OG, they want to be soccer balls. They grow about, a foot high and they're already about a foot wide. They want to go out. They want to be shrubs. I've line bred for that. Both those strains, Quetz is an F7 now, and Fire Creek is an F6. So I've been line breeding for years and years and years to get them to that structure and stay homozygous in that trait. Question?
Yes. What do you mean by line breeding?
Okay. Going back to an F1, you have your P1, your P2, you combine them. That's a meeting of the genetics, like we talked about in F1. You're going to have very many variables, okay? Now, line breeding is the act of going down the line and breeding them. Line breeding depends on what the breeder is looking for. So let's take Thousand Oaks. I have two versions. I have an F3 and an F5, okay, that I'm selling. I have a bunch of F2s I give out every now and then, and I'll just blast, North Atlantic Seed Co. with a, 25, 50 packs of the F2s to give out.
Where's the fourth?
What's the fourth? The fourth turned into the fifth. The fourth sold out. And, it's been with me for a very long time. Like I said, anything that passes F4 really it's my own little sweetheart. It means something to me. It means a lot to the people that have come and bought it out, and I've rebred it, and they've bought it out again, and I've rebred it, and they've bought it out again. And that tells me something, That's not hype. I don't have money to drop a spread article in High Times or anything. There's nobody beating down my door because of my anxiety. I don't do much like this. So it's word of mouth. It's guys that come to me, trust me, and then go out and tell their friends, hey, did you like that? This guy has a real deal. This guy's really doing it. This guy has integrity in his business. This guy, if you pay him, he will send you a tracking. You will get your stuff. You will get your stuff fast. And this stuff is exactly what it says. It's stable, So line breeding, we breed the F1. Then we choose from the F1 seeds. Okay, so let's say for Thousand Oaks, I wanted to go with the F5s. I was choosing short, stocky, stable, and rank. I want as close to that dead, rotten, decaying meat, poison rubber smell I can get. It's an abusive, it's very hard to describe because it's the only plant that I've ever smelled that has been like that. There are some phenos throw garlic, I've heard. I've never come across a garlic one. I've come across a lot of rubber. I've come across a lot of sweet poison. But in the F5s, I was breeding towards rubber. I wanted to preserve the strain and preserve the strain in the phenotype that I liked, which is the rubber. So out of the F1s, I chose a plant that most resembled the mother on the female side and the father on the male side, okay? And put them together. From there, you start getting, now it's an F2. Now you have two full sets instead of two sets for a P1 and a P2 meeting and meshing. Now in an F2, you have two full sets, two full meshed sets of genetics, and they're meeting for the first time in an F2. They haven't met yet. They've been introduced, had an F1 baby. We're all shaking hands at the picnic. Hey, how you doing? How you doing? Now we're going to go and have a baby after we've met and shaken hands, right? So now I like to put it in the layperson so people can understand, because my mind is going a million miles an hour and my mouth can't catch up. And I sound like a total fucking idiot.
Well, and also I'm dumb too. So
I like to drop it in layman's terms and get it, so everybody can understand. So all on a page. And then if you have a question, it's very easy to refer back to that material as an analogy and build on it. So you've got two types of you've got two full sets of mesh genes. They're going to meet together, and now you're getting into the F2s, which is a real strain. Now you have a full makeup of both sets of DNA inside one seed. Okay, they're going to react a little different, but they're going to start bringing out dominant traits. Okay, so if oak tree wanted to have broad leaves and be purple, and that was its dominant traits, and all of them were, pretty much all your F2s are going to be in there. Now you breed the F2s together, going down the line. We're line breeding. So now we have F1s, we have P1s bred to F1s, we have F1s bred to F2s. Now we're breeding F2s to F3s. The F3s start getting very close, because now you've taken out natural selection, and we are doing agriculture here. We're doing human interference, where we're choosing and isolating genes by the choices we make. We're bringing things out to dominance, we're selecting, and we're tightening the gene pool into an F3. Okay, F3 very stable, F4 more stable, very few leaners. Once it gets to an F5, you can monocrop that bitch. If it's a regular seed, you would have to pull your males. But aside from that, you could throw 1,000 seeds of an F5 and you're not going to get a lot of drift. You're going to get 1,000 seeds that act very much the same. Now, you can do that in another way as well. Not line breeding. Open pollinations, where we're breeding for preservation. And we're taking large sifts of seeds, say 100 seeds, and we're starting out with, 25 males that make it, 50 females that make it to the end. So 75 plants all breeding in one mass. And that strengthens the gene pools. That will set traits to dominance. It'll set traits to recessive dominance. And it'll just keep that gene pool mingling and solid and preserved. So you can now take seeds out of that and have a full expression of that plant, and now you can breed towards it. So that's what I've done with the F3s. The F3s haven't been single plant breeds. They'd be open pollination breeds to try and bring that plant not as bottlenecked as in the F5s, where I want to monocrop it. Now you're going to have more expression in the F3s. They're going to be very stable. Nothing's going to hermaphrodite. If you hermaphrodite at an F3, something is wrong with what you've done. On an F3, an F1, a herm can pop out. Okay, they can. But on an F3, if you've chosen right, you've bred away from that, and those traits are buried. Cannabis is a fluid sex plant. It wants to be either. Okay, that's why we can spray it with STS spray and bring out those male qualities to a female. It's a fluid sex plant. It wants to hermaphrodite. The breeder's job is to bury those traits as far as we can. With an F1, they never get buried. They're there. If they come to dominance, or if they stay recessive, has to do with environmental factors, stress factors, feeding stress, lighting factors, but any one of those can bring out the stress to make it hermaphrodite. The plant wants to continue life. Its only goal is not to get you high. Its goal is to create a seed. Its goal is to pollinate, either pollinate another plant, get pollinated by another plant, or pollinate itself if it has no other choice. but damned it'll try.
Luke, I want to ask you too about how do you go about pollinating a plant?
There's a few different ways. If I am breeding for preservation, I'm going to do multiple males and let them go out full term with multiple females. Then I'm going to kill those males and I'm going to just shake them out with all the fans off, and I'll shake them out in the room full of females and multiple males, multiple females. What my end goal is there is to preserve that gene pool with as much depth as I can so that it's all there. So that, you know, it's Baskin-Robbins 31 flavors, and you're carrying that Baskin-Robbins 31 flavors through the generation. You're not all of a sudden hitting a generation and going, oh, we're going to leave half the store behind, and we're only going to carry 15 or 16 flavors forward, right? You want that full expression. So if I'm doing it that way, I'll shake multiple males out on multiple females. If I'm doing a line breed, I usually do it by eugenics. Okay, eugenics is taking the best of the best and breeding it and not leading. It's a scary word. A lot of people have put a scary and a bad, you know.
I almost asked you about this earlier. I was like, it sounds like eugenics for plants.
It is eugenics for plants, and eugenics is a science-based breeding term. It's nothing wrong with it. It's taking the best of the best. Okay, eugenics is in a lot of things. Eugenics is in snakes when we're breeding for color and we're breeding for pattern. We don't want to breed off a cloudy snake. We don't want to breed off something that's not bright and banging. We don't want to breed off a hybrid snake if we're breeding for locality. So eugenics comes into it. Eugenics comes into dog breeding for guide dogs, for police dogs. They only breed the dogs that pass the test and take those dogs from the litters of the dogs that have passed the test and put them into schooling to see if they'll pass the test. Genetic imprint. Okay. A lot of people have heard that with birds. They come out of the egg, they look at the mother and the imprint. Genetics imprint. A lot of people have children. You ever look at your kid and notice, oh my God, she does the same thing I used to do. She curls her little lip up like that when she thinks. Or, you know, she's got a way she scrunches her little nose when she's concentrating. That's an imprinted genetic. That's handed down from you. It's not just I have blue eyes, my wife has blue eyes, my kid has blue eyes. Or I have brown eyes, my wife has green eyes, my kid has brown eyes. It's genetics imprint. We can get into talking about the pros and cons of fem seeds if you like, because
why don't you get into it?
Well, it's a good little avenue with genetic imprints because pollen can imprint as well. Stress can imprint onto pollen and can carry through to the progeny. So when we're making fem seeds of F1s, we're stressing a female, we're spraying it with silver thiosulfate spray, silver nitrate thiosulfate spray. Okay,
what we do is why is that the avenue to do that?
You know, there is other avenues of doing it. You can stress a plant hormonally. You can stress a plant by light. You can stress a plant by feed to get it to her. A lot of people do it unknowingly. A lot of plants will hermaphrodite at the end of their life cycle as they're trying to reproduce. What we're doing when we spray STS spray is we're inhibiting it from producing, and here comes that. Quick, Google it. I want to say glycol, and that's not it. The plant has to produce a certain pheromone I guess you call it.
I don't have a Jamie over here like Joe Rogan does.
I wish you did, man, because I really need it right now. Because as soon as we hang up, I'll be like, oh, fuck. It inhibits it from producing something that will produce female flowers. And thus, it produces male flowers. Okay? So STS spray was a darkroom chemical. It was for photography. And I don't know how they started using it in agriculture. We used to use in the old days, we used to use they used to use colloidal silver.
Yeah.
I'm still very new at feminized seeds. I never wanted to do feminized seeds. Feminized seeds, as we will get into, I'm old school. I'm 50 years old. Feminized seeds and hermaphrodites were always known to be inferior. You know, you don't want your seeds to hermaphrodite. You don't want any males. You want to kill your males unless you're breeding and making seeds. Get rid of your males when they're young, you know, and just have those pure females. So if a female hermaphrodited at 4 weeks old, you kill the room. You get rid of it. Gone. We wouldn't even take the risk of going in there and picking off flowers. We would kill the room and replant something else that didn't hurt. And, you know, going back to that. Sorry, I just lost my spot.
That's okay. I have lots of spots here for you.
Well, we were talking about fem seeds, right? And I want to get back to that.
Yeah.
What just brought us on to the STS spray? Anybody in the comments?
Yeah.
My Jamie?
This person has a comment about the echo. I'm sorry about the echo. I heard that earlier. And I hope it's not too big of a problem because I'm having a great conversation here. But can you tell me about, you know, I've heard the term pollen chucker a number of times as people who just kind of, you know, throw pollen everywhere and don't really.
I think it's a way that the industry puts their foot on the other guy's head and tries to disregard what they're doing. I put out regular seeds that's what I was saying is I never wanted to do fem seeds. The reason why I never wanted to do fem seeds is I'm a line breeder. I want to preserve. And I want guys to have males. I want guys to have good males because males change a strain, okay? And if you're growing out your male and you go, damn, I got 3 males, I'm telling you from the bottom of my heart, they're great males. Like I have put the care into making sure that those males will just benefit the general population. My life goal is to end my life and make cannabis better. So whatever I can put out there, if somebody grows my seeds out and they pollinate their neighbors' plants in their backyard, it sucks, but at least I sleep better knowing that those seeds are better than the mother it came from because it was my male. So I want guys to pollen chuck. I want guys to take my seeds and back them up. I want guys to take my males and use them on other stuff. Use them on those hype 31% cuttings. Use them. Use my males on them. The structure, the vigor, and everything in those males is great. A male will change a strain. So use them. And, you know, it's at the end of the day, it's my legacy living on. When I'm long and dead, if your kids have seeds of seeds that were made with my pollen, I'm still living. It's my legacy that continues on. So,
can I ask you, Luke? You said at some point you're going to reach a point where you're going to need that male. I'd like to know what you meant by that.
Yes. Well, especially S1s, when you're taking a clone, reversing a clone, it is turning into a male and pollinating itself. You've added nothing to that. Again, dumbing it down to the layperson, it's like a photocopy of of a photocopy of a photocopy. And sooner or later, it's really hard to read that copy because the ink is really poorly laid on there. It's not the original. It's a very watered down, poor resemblance facsimile of the original. And that's what you're doing with S1s, because you're never adding anything to the genetic. Genetics is math at the end of the day. I can describe it one way and I can be totally wrong. Somebody else can describe it another way. They can be totally wrong. It's math at the end of the day. You need to throw enough seeds, and I speak really shitty, so you have to move through. I understand that, and I understand I jump around topic to topic, and I'm sorry, that's my mental illness. So you have to kind of take everything I'm saying with a little grain of salt and wipe away a lot of the shit to get to the goal. But you need a male to inject vigor, or else you're going to have that reasonable facsimile of the original photocopy, and it's just going to get weaker and weaker and weaker. And in S1s, you don't have a male. There is no male. We're telling a female you're going to turn male. I'm going to stress you male, but there is no male chromosome in a female. There is no male profile in a female. So at some point, you need to inject vigor back into that S1. The only way to do it is with a male. Now, femming a clone and dropping it on another seeded plant or another clone of another strain isn't that crucial, as you've got another makeup of genetics in there. So you've got a separate set of alleles to the DNA that you're dropping in there. And those alleles can find dominant and recessive traits on the same alleles in that same segment of DNA in the other donor plant and mesh up and become dominant and recessive dominant. So that's not that as bad as an S1. But stems are great for saving a cutting, okay, to put something back in stasis. Oh, I've got powdery mildew on this, and it was an elite cutting. What am I going to do? I've held this cutting for 5 years. You're going to femicide it. You're going to put it back into a stable, neutral, protected, and it's safeguarded. It's back in seed form. And it's a carbon clone of the mother. It's the exact same genetics are in it, okay? But it got there from being stressed. Remember, we got to this by saying stress imprints. That pollen that came out of that female that was turned into a male from stress carries those stressful memories. It's like nightmares in the pollen, and they imprint to that progeny underneath them. So that stressing and hermaphrodite trading goes down to that next level, and that's why you'll get hermaphroditing at 3 weeks. And they won't be in everyone. I mean, I just ran blank breeder's name, blank strain, and I had one hermaphrodite plant. It wasn't that bad. It was enough that I could go and pull out, but I wouldn't breed with it. Those traits are there, and those traits are crying to get out. They're dominant in that one plant of seeds. The rest of them didn't herm, but that one did, and that's just it's selection. We've gone feminized in the industry because, one, you're guaranteed females. A lot of people have small plant counts now. A lot of places that it's becoming legal, or not federally legal, but legal in your state. It's federally legal in Canada, but we have in Ontario anyway. We have a 4-plant count, so legal 4-plant count. So people want 4 stems. Well, legally, yeah. If you don't have a medical card, everybody over 18 can have 4 plants in their house. So whether it be flowering or not, it's 4 plants per household. So if there was 3 18-year-olds or 4 18-year-olds in this apartment, they all get 1 plant, kind of deal. If there's one 18-year-old, he gets all 4. Lucky him. Yeah. So the small plant counts, the people want guaranteed females. They don't want to waste their time on a male where they only have 4 plants going and 2 of them are male. We have to pull them. Now we only have 2 plants going. And it took us a month and a half to figure those out. They don't want to go on that. It's convenience, right? We prioritize convenience over long-term sustainability.
How do you
look? Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, how do you feminize a seed?
You spray. You take a plant. You take a seed. You run the seed. You make sure it doesn't hermaphrodite and it doesn't have any hermaphrodite characteristics, and then you try and reverse it. I have plants right now in a tent here that are trying to be reversed, and they've been going at it for almost 5 weeks, and they're not turning. Some plants will do it, some plants won't. I am very new to it, but the idea is take a clone, run it, make sure it's proven, spray it with STS spray, which is what we're doing is, hold on, I have it in my notes. We're taking 1/2 part of silver nitrate solution, and we're adding a full part of thiosulfate solution to 100 milliliters of water. And we're taking that as our A. We're adding it to 900 milliliters of distilled water, shake it, and spray it. The sprayer,
you distill your water.
Yeah, I buy distilled water from a store, but yeah, it needs to be distilled water. You spray your plant. I am still learning the regimen of your sprays. It seems to be you can spray it once 1 week before they go into flower. Then as soon as they trigger to 12-12, I'm spraying them every second to third day. My F6 72 virgins, I didn't think it was going to turn, and out of 4 plants, 1 of them turned beautifully. It looked just like a male. In fact, I was sending pictures to my buddy going, this is a female, right? And he's like, yeah, what are you, stupid? Is this a trick question? No, I'm asking you, it's a female, right? Because now 4 weeks later, it looks like a total male. I can't tell it's a female. But it was the only plant that turned. The rest of them kind of started doing funky things, but not really turning enough to getting viable pollen on them. To get viable pollen is the kick right now. And some people are very good at it. Like I said, I never wanted to do fem seeds. There's a lot more work in fem seeds. Now that I have learned how to do it, and I'm dabbling in it myself, I can appreciate the fem seed breeders a little more, that there is a lot of work in them. I still can't get over the fact that it's a Xerox copy of somebody else's work if you're doing S1s. I would like to see people doing fem crosses with other fems. The con to them are they're prone to herm from being stressed. Okay. Another con to them is there's less vigor. They're weaker because they don't have that male in them. They don't have that vigor. It's female to female. They're easier to get stressed. They're easier to pick up pathogens. They're easier to get powdery mildew and virus loads and everything because they don't have that vigor going in.
With the male, you're going to get me in trouble here, Luke.
With the male, absolutely. It's commercial convenience, as I said, and in the long run, we're going to suffer for it. Cannabis is going to suffer for it. Okay, we've taken out natural selection. We've taken out phenotypic selection. So in those S1s and those fem seeds, you're kind of locked into whatever phenotype the mother was. There's not going to be a lot of variance, especially if it's an S1 with a mother pollinating a clone of the exact same line. there's going to be hardly any drift. It's going to express just like it. Now, people like that. Why? Because we're in the age of convenience. It's an Instagram age. You want your pictures to be beautiful. You want your gives a shit what they smoke like. You want them to look good. I want to get 100 likes, and nobody is smoking it. They're just looking at it. So if it looks beautiful and it's colorful and it's frosty as hell, and I have a THC test that says it's 33%, beautiful. But then we go to the 33% tested weed on the shelf of the dispensary, and some idiot comes and he sprays it with fake terps. Why? Because it was 31% and it tasted like cardboard box. That's why. So they have to add a spray terp to it.
Can I ask you about sorry, Luke. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'd love to ask you about that testing, because I think THC percentage is one of the most overrated statistics in the world. And yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, let's go back to the first question we had of the night with Roadkill Skunk. What do you think Roadkill Skunk would test at if we pulled a batch from the mid 80s and we're able to test it right now in a time machine, just wormhole it over so it hasn't sat on the shelf for 25 years, but a mid 80s bud of Roadkill Skunk, and we THC tested. What do you think the levels are going to be on that for THC? 13?
I don't know.
16?
I don't know.
17? Maybe. That's high. That's high for that time. All you have to do is pick up a high times from that age and look at it. Weed has gotten really, really pretty, but a lot of those, the effect is gone. The depth is gone. You get depth and you get effect by hunting, and you get that with full expressions of cannabis, meaningful expressions of cannabis, and preserving those strains. Not every strain is going to be a banger. You know, I got something like 32 strains, and I'll tell you, not everyone is a banger. You know, there are ones that sit on the shelf that not a lot of people buy. There are some that sit on the shelf that not a lot of people buy, but they're overlooked. And then there are straight bangers that just keep going out and keep going out and keep going out. And I can afford to keep making new stuff because the old stuff that are bangers keeps me in business. You know, but not everything is going to be a killer. And, you know, you can chase numbers and you can reverse these elite clones onto these other F1s, onto these other elite clones, and you can reverse and reverse and reverse and reverse. But going back to sustainability, we are running off a cliff doing that. We really are. We're weakening the genetic pool so much doing that. And sure, they look pretty. But it only takes bottlenecking that. You'll never get it back. You know, all the strains of yesteryear will never get back. You know, it might be life. Maybe it's me just screaming at the sky, and what's going to happen is going to happen. It's happened in the past. It'll happen in the future, you know, but this cannabis is what I love. And I, from experience, look, I'm 50 years old. I've been smoking since my two idiot brothers got me high at 14 years old, 13 years old, something like that, off an oil joint. And I'll tell you, I go and I spend money, and I'll go to the dispo and I'll buy what's hot. And I've got garlic butter. I've got Super Boof. I've got Banana Conda. Thank you, Nick, at Stone Leaf. I've got a lot of elites. And the problem with them is, yes, they look beautiful and they test high. They taste like cardboard. 20 minutes after smoking it, I'm smoking another one. And it's the more you get in the THC scale, you're pushing something else out. And what I liked is what you pushed out to get that high number. I like terpenes. I like CBN. I like CBG. I like a little bit of CBD in my bud. I mean, I'm not a CBD weed smoker. I'm a THC weed smoker, but I like everything in there. And I've used this analogy time and time again. It's like going and seeing your favorite band when you're smoking high THC. Only the lead singer is plugged in and he's just screaming at you. And then when you smoke a well-balanced cannabis with a little bit of every compound in there doing the entourage effect, it's like going to see your favorite band in a nice auditorium where the sound is tuned and it's crisp and it's warm and you can feel the bass in your chest and every drum and you're picking off the silence between the notes and it's a full experience. And you know, that's the public has to realize that, and the public will realize that. With experience comes knowledge, but right now it's coming online. The dominoes are still falling, and people are being taught to chase a number right now. You know, and the farms are encouraging it by chasing genetics that chase a number, and that's not my bag. You know, I've got some high 72 virgins. I have a test for it for 32%. A lot of my stuff will test at 20 to 25. And I'm not ashamed of that because there's a lot of go in my stuff. There's a lot of all gas, no brakes in my stuff. So in fact, I was just
you shouldn't be ashamed because I think those numbers are kind of bogus.
I was down in Vermont a few weeks ago for NECAN.
Yeah, that was my next question, Luke. Thanks for ruining my segue.
Okay, well, we'll get in there. We can get in there right now. All I want to say is, you know, coming from Canada, I do a really shitty booth down there every year. I am the worst booth. I am to the pores. It's horrible. Nobody wants to take a picture of my booth because it's 3 little cases with seeds in them and a little banner and me and my dog. The thing is, I come from Canada. I only promote in the States. So I do the Vermont shows, and whatever I cross the border with is subject to seizure, and they will take everything. They don't care. If it's cannabis, they will take everything. They give me a real hassle coming across the border every time. In fact, this time they went back to some stuff in 1994 and had me over in secondary, and all they had to do was pop my trunk and look in, and they would have seized everything and sent me back across. So I come over in squalor, but I come over every year because my friend Kendall owns White River Grow Pro, and he has been awesome to me. I wouldn't be this far along without him. I owe that man a lot. I love him like family. He was looking for a probiotic breeder and brought me on very early in the days, and we've just treated each other with integrity. I've been to his house. I've stayed there for a week with his family, you know, and every year the door is open to come down. So I go down, I see him and give the family a hug and shake a lot of hands. And I go down there just to see the people. But the reason I got on this and at Anycan was coming from Canada, I can't bring anything with me. You know, it's a risk bringing the seeds across. So I get on Google and I search for dispensaries in the area. And I found a dispensary in South Burlington where I was staying, and I looked at their menu. Thousand Oaks was on it. Now, Thousand Oaks has been released now for 8-9 years, and it's still being stocked in dispensaries. It had, I think it was a 27% THC on it, which I don't know if it was 27 really. Was it 27 really, or was it 22? But to each their own. Maybe it was 27. Hell yeah. But my point is, you know, 8-9 years after release, they're stocking it in a dispensary down there. That's staying power. And you know, you can throw your 31% THC strain up on the market, but I wonder if it's going to still be on the market in a year, or if we're going to move on to the next fad and on to the next fad. So yeah, it was really cool seeing that there. Yeah.
How do you keep up with the fads, or
I don't.
As someone who does
I mean,
like a podcast where I have an audience, I really don't. I like to do what I like to do. And I'm wondering if you're the same kind of guy, Luke.
Absolutely. I've always said I will never do autos. I don't care. I'm not chasing the money. I do this primarily, and I've said it on every podcast I've ever been on. I've said it in every article I've ever been interviewed in. I do this primarily for my medication. Okay. I don't know whether it's because my life feels so chaotic and that's the only place I have control in. But when I go in a grow room, the plants don't get light unless I flick the lights on or set the timer. They don't get to sleep until I tell them the hours that they can sleep between. The only thing they can do is sit in their sips and feed. Okay. But tilling the earth, watering them, thinning the canopy, that's all love. That's all stuff that I get to do. And when I get to do that, that's medicinal to me. The whirl of the fans, the hum of the lights, it sets me in this Zen place. And there's two things that have come close to it for me. I'm sure everybody finds their flow state and their Zen spot different. The only thing that's come close to it for me is fly fishing, being absolutely alone out in the wilderness, tits deep in water with a fly rod, or riding a motorcycle and just the wind knocking everything off and being the hum and having the bike become an extension of your body and low flying altitude. That's as close as I've come. And I get that off gardening. So regardless, if I had Omuerta, if I had a website, if I was doing podcasts, or if I was just a pollen chucker in my bedroom, I would still be doing this because I like to do it. I like genetics. I like genetics, how they work together. Snakes are great. Snakes are expensive. Okay. They're beautiful. They take a long time to breed. They only breed once a year. They take 60 days to gestate those eggs. Then they take another 56 days or 51 days to incubate those eggs. Then they take 4 years to raise them up to breed again. Whereas plants take 4 months from seed to when they're being cut down. And those seeds can be taken right out of those plants, germinated that night, and you've got another 3 to 4 months to see what you've got. And you can take, instead of a snake that has, say, 16 to 25 babies, a plant can have 1,000 to 10,000 seeds in it, depending on how big that plant is. So you can throw a lot more numbers and you can get a lot more feedback quicker. And that just, it's addicting. It just really is addicting to be able to see it, to be able to put it on paper, but then see it on such a mass scale, and to be able to give seeds out to people and have them grow them, to be able to sell seeds and have them grow them. Like I give a lot of testers out every year. I make special strains just to give out that I know when these plants come down, I'm going to be giving this seed out for free. It's a thank you from me to the customers. The customers get more than they're paying for. They get a little surprise in their bag when they get it at their doorstep. They're happy, and it lets me test the waters going forward. I get to use them as a sounding board, and all of a sudden they're testers and they don't know it. And they're growing out these gear and they're sending me back pictures and they're posting on their Instagram or their Facebook and they're posting in groups. And I get to see that. And that feedback, it's just like it allows me to have an extra light at their house. And I don't have to, and it's hands off. I don't have to take care of the plants, but I get to see the end result. And that shapes what I do next. That shapes the direction I go, whether I shelf it, whether I bring it back, whether I start hunting for it, So I'm always excited. Nican there. Went down to Nican, brought my new dog, and that's half of it. I go down and I get inspired by the little guy. You know, you can take from whatever. You can walk into a huge tier 3, you know, commercial grow, and you can take how they're feeding and rolling tables, and you can take that back and implement it yourself. You can also do that with the little guy. With the little guy that doesn't, he's not a great grower. He's been growing for a bit, but he keeps his room fucking spotless. And I see that and it goes, makes me want to go back and clean my room, man. It's a very basic thing, but it's in the end result. That's part of it. It takes many pieces to you know, it's a cog in the machine. Yeah. So any can, if you want to stay there for a minute, I usually go down with my buddy Nugget or my buddy Gunner. It's my dog. You've met him, Caleb. A lot of the fans have met him. He went down to every show with me. He was a service dog, big mastiff. And this year I got to bring the runner-up, not his replacement, but Nugget is my new dog, and he gets to carry on where Gunner left off, not as a replacement, but just carrying on the tradition. And so I brought him down there and met a lot of people. He loved everybody. He was really good in the booth. The Saturday, we stayed all day the Friday. The Saturday, I ducked out of there. I was only there until about 1 o'clock, and then I ducked out of there. We had made some money. We had seen a lot of people, and I just didn't want to make it a bad experience for him. So we cruised out of there. Yeah, that was fun. Seeing everybody, seeing Kendall, having the shittiest booth, 9-hour drive there, 9-hour drive back for what, 6 hours a show, 8 hours a show.
Will you tell us a little bit about Kendall and Stephanie from White River Grow Pro?
Sure. What do you want to know?
Just, you know, I talked to Stephanie way back in the day, and I was immediately impressed. And, you know, I don't know them super well. However, you know, they have been very supportive of my work, and I really think that they have a nice lineage here in Vermont. And yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
I think they're very supportive of everybody in the cannabis industry. You know, Kendall is a grower himself. He's been a grower all his life. He's a steward to the plant. He's also a teacher. Stephanie is very business focused. She is very dot the I's and cross the T's. She's very organized. So she's a power player. She's a pusher. She's the business. She is, you know, making sure the family runs, making sure that everybody's fed, making sure the lights stay on. And Kendall is the garden guru. He is the face of White River Grow Pro. Both of them are the face, but Kendall is talks a lot about the growers to the growers and really walks the walk. I didn't know him from a hole in the ground. He didn't know me from a hole in the ground. Going back to the PFA and Allen's site, he was looking for a probiotic organic breeder. He just wanted to offer a better product. Probiotics and organics encourage a healthier seed. They encourage a thicker seed shell. They encourage a longer life. They encourage a little bit of an energy boost off the get-go, so you don't have to feed that sprouting for a few weeks of its life. It also protects it from pathogens from the first weeks of its life, virus loads. And he knew that, so he wanted to offer that in his store. He was a full-scale grow store, but in his own life, he is very strong on organic and probiotic gardening. He offered another breeder for a bit, and things just didn't work out. They got bumpy there for a little bit, and so he was looking to replace a breeder. And I talked to him, and I said, yeah, you know, I'm here. This is what I do. And so for the first probably 2-3 years, Kendall just referenced people to me. If people came into the store, he would say, oh, this is the guy you want. And I don't even know if I had a website at the time. I don't think I did. I think I just had a Facebook site and business cards. And he would send them to the site, or he would give them my email, and off I would go. I treated every one of them with integrity. I was grateful and expressed that to every one of them. I was honest with every one of them. If I couldn't serve their needs, I would tell them, that's not what I do. I can't really serve your needs, or I think you'd be better served going elsewhere. And I would give them a link. If a guy was brand new, I wasn't going to give him regular seeds to hunt males. You know, you probably want a fem, or you probably want an auto if you've never grown before and you just want to learn the life cycle of a plant. I don't want to scare people away. We Build Soldiers is not just a tagline. It's not just the name of my site. It is my whole mission statement, is to go out and take somebody and turn them into a grower and give them a reliable product, give them the skills and the knowledge and help them along and let them succeed. And if they can succeed and one day be a way better grower than me, then I've done my job. I love working with growers of all skill. I can learn off the ones that are better than me, and I can teach the ones that are coming up. And it's a beautiful, it's totally symbiotic.
When the student becomes the teacher.
It's happened. It's happened, you know. Unfortunately, the student becomes the teacher, and there's falling outs. And unfortunately, that happened too. But yeah, I had a student that, and I love him to this day. He had a falling out with me. I tried to make it right, but I guess I couldn't. But you know, we're all grown men, so we make our decisions.
Luke, I got to get out of here.
Okay. Bye.
I want to slap your logo up one more time. And I'm sorry for the echo, guys. I know there's something weird happening with my gear here. But Luke Williams, Omuerta Genetix. If you have any final notes before we get out of here, I'm going to give you the time at the end here. And thank you for joining me, Luke. It's a pleasure. But
my time at the end here would be served by thanking you very much, Caleb, for using your platform to allow me to come on, to thank the people that were watching, to thank the people that will watch and that have made it this far. Guys, I know, I get it. Like, this is why I don't do these. I have a very hard problem speaking publicly. I know that there's people watching, and I flip out and I forget shit and I go in circles. And you've got to understand that I'm a medical patient myself. I'm not only the president, but I'm also a client.
If that's it, Luke, I'm going to sign it off here. Hang on for a minute, guys. I'm going to do this one more time. My guest is Luke Williams, Omuerta Genetix. We Build Soldiers. Check him out. There you go.
Come get your friend packs. WeBuildSoldiers.com. There's a big blog there for you. If you're new to growing, drop me an email. I talk to everybody, man. This is what we do.
All right, Luke. Thank you so much for being here. Stick around for 1 minute. And I'm Caleb Teskey. You've been watching The Fine Print. Remember, the devil's in the details, and the details are in the fine print.